Y'all, let me tell you about my wedding day. Picture this. Champagne is flowing, diamonds are sparkling, and we are at the most beautiful and most expensive wedding of the year. And then, my new husband's beautiful and very vindictive ex-girlfriend stands up and calls me a gold digger from the hood who doesn't belong. What happened next? Girl, let me tell you why that was the single biggest mistake of her entire and very privileged life. Before I dive into this wild and very satisfying story that changed my life forever, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Trust me, you do not want to miss a single delicious moment of stories like this one. And please, drop a comment below letting me know. Have you ever had someone try to embarrass you in public? Now, let me tell you about the day that I learned what it really truly means to have someone fight for you. My name is Denise, and let me start by saying that I never ever thought I would be telling this story. 3 years ago, I was just a 28-year-old architect trying with all my might to make my own small mark in the big, and very competitive city of San Francisco. I had my own small firm, a firm that specialized in sustainable and very beautiful housing projects. You know, trying to make real and very affordable homes that actually helped the communities they were in, instead of just making rich people richer. I wasn't looking for love. I definitely was not looking for a billionaire. But sometimes life has other and much more interesting plans for you. I met Jonathan at a charity gala for affordable housing. Now, I usually avoided those fancy and very boring events because, let's be real, most of the time it's just a room full of rich people patting themselves on the back while they write big fat checks just to feel a little better about their own very immense privilege. But this one was different. They had actually wanted to hear from the real and very on-the-ground architects who were doing the real work in the city's most underserved communities. I was on the stage presenting my latest project, a new and very innovative housing development in Oakland that used solar panels and community gardens. When I had first noticed him, a tall and very handsome white man in an expensive and very well-tailored suit, who was actually, and with a surprising and very real intensity, paying attention. Not the polite and very fake attention you usually get at these kinds of things, but a genuine and very real interest. He was taking notes. He was asking real and very intelligent questions about sustainability and about community impact. After my presentation, he had approached me. "I'm Jonathan Pierce," he had said as he extended his hand. That was incredible. I have been looking for someone who actually understands how to build real and very vibrant communities, not just buildings. Now, I knew exactly who Jonathan Pierce was. He was the tech billionaire who had made his entire vast fortune by the age of 30 with some kind of a brilliant and very complicated app that I, to be honest, still don't fully understand. But what had surprised me was that he knew my work, had researched my projects, he had understood my vision. We had ended up talking for 2 straight hours that night, about everything from architecture to social justice to our favorite and most obscure books. He had asked for my number. I had given it to him. Not because he was rich, honey, I had my own money, but because, for the very first time in years, I felt as if someone had actually, and with a very real and very profound sincerity, seen me. The real me. Our first date was supposed to be a fancy and very expensive dinner at some place I couldn't even pronounce. But Jonathan had called me that afternoon. "I know this might sound a little weird," he had said, "but would you rather go to Home Depot with me and then grab some tacos?" See, I had mentioned that I was working on a new community center project and that I needed to pick up some materials. Most men would have just nodded politely. But Jonathan, what Jonathan had, wanted to see my work. We had spent 3 hours walking through the aisles of Home Depot while I had explained the intricacies of sustainable building materials. And then we had eaten the best and very cheapest fish tacos of our entire lives at this little hole-in-the-wall truck in the Mission District. And that is when I knew that he was different. He wasn't trying to impress me with his money. He was trying to understand my world. That's my husband, y'all. That's the man I married. A man who didn't want a wife who would give up her own dreams for him, but a partner who would make the world a better and more beautiful place right alongside him. Planning our wedding was mostly smooth. Jonathan's parents, who were, let's just call it, a little surprised when they first met me, were not hostile. They were just clearly not what they had expected for their billionaire tech genius son. But they came around eventually, once they saw how truly and deeply happy their son was. And once they realized that I, Denise, was not going anywhere. My own parents were over the moon. My mama kept crying these happy, joyful tears and talking about how proud she was of the strong, independent woman I had become. And my daddy, he just kept asking Jonathan about his intentions until I finally had to tell him to stop. We decided on a beautiful and very classy, but not too stuffy, vineyard wedding in Napa Valley. 200 guests, just our family, our close friends, and a few of his most important business associates. It was going to be the kind of a wedding where people actually celebrated a real and very beautiful love, instead of just networking. But about a month before the wedding, we started to hear the whispers. And those whispers, they all had a name: Vanessa Cole. Jonathan had told me all about his ex-girlfriend early on in our relationship. They had dated for 2 years, and according to him, it was all surface level. A relationship built on fancy parties, expensive, and very Instagram-perfect vacations, but with absolutely no real or deep connection. She was more interested in being seen with me, he had explained, than in actually knowing me, said. That whenever he had tried to talk about anything meaningful, her eyes would just glaze over. They had broken up about 6 months before we had met. She had wanted him to propose, but he had finally, and with a great and very final clarity, realized that they had absolutely nothing in common. Beyond looking good together at the galas, I had never met Vanessa during our dating period. But I had heard about her. She was old money, San Francisco. Her family had been wealthy and very powerful for generations. She was the kind of a woman who had gone to all the right schools, who had joined all the right clubs, and who had been raised to marry all the right men. She was everything that I wasn't. Hey, honey, she did not take it well at all that Jonathan, was now dating a black woman from Oakland, a woman who had actually, and with a great deal of a very real pride, worked for her own money. We started to hear through some of our mutual friends that Vanessa had been talking, saying things like, "Oh, it'll never last, and she is so obviously and so pathetically just after his money." Jonathan was furious, but I had told him to just let it go. "Baby," I had said, "secure people do not need to tear other people down. She is just showing everyone exactly who she really is." I had no idea, not then, that she was planning to show up. So our wedding, October 15th, 2022, the most beautiful day of my entire life, until it almost became the worst. The vineyard looked like something out of a fairy tale. Walking down that long, beautiful aisle and seeing Jonathan's face, honey, I am getting emotional just thinking about it. He had started crying before I was even halfway to the altar. This billionaire tech genius, crying like a baby, because he was so happy to be marrying me. Our vows, they were perfect. Promised to support my dreams and to fight right alongside me for the communities that we both cared so deeply about. And I, in turn, promised to build a life with him, a life that would honor both of our very different backgrounds and that would create something new and very beautiful together. The ceremony was flawless. There was not a single dry eye in the entire house. Even Jonathan's stuffiest and most powerful business partners were wiping their faces. But after the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, I had noticed her. Vanessa Cole, she was standing near the bar in a white dress, which, honey, is as tacky as hell to wear to someone else's wedding. But that's just who she is. She had, apparently, come as someone's plus one, though we never did figure out whose. "Don't you let her ruin your day," my maid of honor had whispered in my ear. "She is not worth it." I had just nodded. But I had. This strange and very cold feeling in the pit of my stomach, feeling like something very bad was about to happen. Dinner was magical. Jonathan and I sat at our sweetheart table, feeding each other small, delicious bites of our meal and laughing at the funny and very heartfelt speeches from our wedding party. His best man told a series of embarrassing and very funny stories about their college days. And my sister, she talked about how I had always dreamed of designing beautiful and very affordable homes for families, and how proud she was that I had never, not for a single moment, given up on that dream. And then it was time for our father-daughter dance. My daddy had chosen Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder, the very same song he used to sing to me in his deep and very off-key voice when I was just a little girl. We were swaying slowly on the dance floor, him whispering in my ear how proud he was of me when I saw a movement in my peripheral vision. It was Vanessa, and she was walking toward us fast and with a very clear and very dangerous purpose. The music, as if on cue, screeched to a halt. Every single conversation in that grand and very beautiful room died. 200 pairs of very curious and now very concerned eyes turned to stare at us. My daddy, my sweet and very protective daddy, stepped slightly, almost imperceptibly, in front of me, a silent and very powerful shield. Jonathan was already out of his chair, already moving toward us, his own handsome face now darker and more furious than I had ever seen it. But Vanessa kept talking, her words a torrent of a long-suppressed and very ugly venom. The silence in that room was deafening. I felt as if every single eye was burning into me, judging me, waiting with a bated and very bated breath to see what I would do. But you know what? I had been dealing with people like Vanessa with their quiet and not so quiet, very ugly prejudices my whole entire life. In every corporate boardroom, in every city planning meeting, in every single solitary networking event, there was always someone who had looked at me and had seen what I wasn't, instead of what I was. I stepped forward then, out from behind my daddy's protective arm, and I looked Vanessa directly in her cold, and now very triumphant eyes. I could hear the gasps rippling around the room, and I saw a flicker of a genuine and very real confusion flash across her own, very beautiful face. I do not belong, I continued, in a world where people think that love is about your social status instead of about your partnership, where a person's success is measured by how many people you can look down on instead of by how many people you can lift up, where someone so deeply and so profoundly unhappy with their own empty life would actually crash a stranger's wedding just to try and spread a little of their own pathetic hate. I took another, slow and very deliberate step closer. You want to know what kind of a person I am, Vanessa? I asked. I am the kind of a person who builds beautiful and very affordable homes for the families who have been forgotten. I am the kind of a person who fights for the very same communities that people like you pretend don't even exist. I am the kind of a person who has earned every single solitary thing that I have through my own very real hard work and my own very real integrity. And yes, I finished, my own voice now a quiet and very powerful and very final sound. I'm the kind of a woman who is lucky enough to find a man who loves me for exactly who I am, not for who he or his mother or his snotty little ex-girlfriend thinks that I should be. The room was so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. But you are also right, I added, that I will never be one of you. And for that, I thank God. Before Vanessa could even begin to respond, Jonathan was by my side. And honey, let me tell you, I had never, ever seen him so angry. Get out, he said to Vanessa, his own voice a low and very dangerous sound. Right now. Jonathan, she started, her own voice now a little less confident, a little more pleading. I am just trying to save you from making the biggest mistake of your entire life. The biggest mistake of my life, he interrupted, his own voice now rising with a powerful and very righteous fury, was wasting too long and very empty years of it with someone so shallow, so cruel, and so completely and utterly pathetic that she would actually, and with a great and very public glee, crash my wedding just to try and insult my wife. He moved then to stand between us, a powerful and very final shield, protecting me from her venom. Denise is worth 10 of you, he said. She is brilliant. She is kind. She makes the entire world a better place just by being in it. She chose me. Not my money, not my status. But me. Something that you never did. And something that you could never, ever do. He signaled to the security team that he had hired for the event. Escort Miss Cole off of the property, he commanded. Immediately. If she tries to come back, you call the police. As security approached, Vanessa looked around the room desperately, maybe expecting someone to defend her. But every single person was looking at her with disgust and embarrassment. "This isn't over," she hissed as they led her away. Jonathan took my hand and faced our guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry you had to witness that. But I'm not sorry you got to see exactly why I married the most incredible woman in the world. Now, let's continue celebrating." The room erupted in applause. People were cheering, crying, rushing over to hug us. Mama was sobbing with pride. Jonathan's mother came over and hugged me tight, whispering, "I'm so sorry," in my ear. The wedding continued beautifully after that. We danced, we laughed, we celebrated with people who truly loved us. But Jonathan was different. For the rest of the night, quieter, thoughtful. The next morning during our honeymoon planning, he looked at me seriously. "What Vanessa did was unforgivable," he said, "but it was also revealing. I need to understand why she thought she could get away with it." That's when Jonathan decided to look into Vanessa's background more carefully. He hired a private investigator, not to harass her, but to understand what was really going on. What we discovered was shocking. Remember how I told you Vanessa was old money? Well, that was only partially true. Her family had been wealthy, but they'd lost most of their fortune in bad investments over the past decade. The Cole family was basically broke, living off credit and the last remnants of trust funds. Vanessa's lifestyle, the designer clothes, the luxury apartment, the expensive car was all financed by debt and family connections that were rapidly disappearing. She wasn't the secure socialite she pretended to be. She was desperate. And here's the really messed up part: her family's construction company had several contracts with Jonathan's businesses. Not huge deals, but enough to keep them afloat. She probably thought if she could break us up and get back together with Jonathan, she could save her family's financial situation. Her racism wasn't just personal hatred. It was economic desperation disguised as superiority. Once Jonathan learned about the business connections, he made some calls. Nothing illegal or unethical, but those contracts that were up for renewal, they weren't renewed. The Cole Construction Company had to find other clients. Jonathan also quietly let his business network know what had happened at our wedding. Not in a vindictive way, but these are people who work together regularly. Word spreads. Within a month, the Cole family found themselves increasingly shut out of their social and business circles. Not because of some coordinated campaign, but because most decent people don't want to associate with someone who would do what Vanessa did. Meanwhile, something beautiful was happening with my work. The story of our wedding, not the drama, but my response to it, had somehow gotten out. A video of my speech went viral on social media. Suddenly I was getting calls from all over the country. Architects, city planners, community leaders. They all wanted to work with the woman who'd stood up to a racist bully with such grace and dignity. My firm got contracts in Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, projects I'd only dreamed of. But more importantly, young black women started reaching out to me. Students, professionals, entrepreneurs. They said seeing me refuse to be diminished had inspired them to stand up in their own lives. That meant more to me than any business success. Fast forward 6 months, Jonathan and I were stronger than ever. We'd bought a house in Oakland near my childhood neighborhood, and I was designing a new community center for the area. Jonathan had started a foundation focused on affordable housing and sustainable development. We were having dinner at our favorite taco truck when my phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged me in a social media post. It was a picture of Vanessa in a retail uniform working at a department store counter. The caption read something like, "From socialite to sales associate, how the mighty have fallen." I showed Jonathan, expecting him to laugh or make a joke. I don't take pleasure in her struggles, he said. What she did was wrong, but I hope she's learning from this. Maybe working a real job will teach her something about the people she used to look down on. That's my husband, y'all. Even after everything, he chose compassion over revenge. Here's what I learned from this whole experience. Standing up for yourself isn't about being aggressive or getting revenge. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to let others diminish it. Vanessa tried to embarrass me by pointing out all the ways I was different from her world. But those differences weren't weaknesses. They were my strengths, my background, my work, my values. Those things made me who I was. And who I was is exactly who Jonathan fell in love with. When someone tries to tear you down, especially using racism or classism, they're usually revealing more about their own insecurities than anything about you. Vanessa wasn't really attacking me. She was expressing her own fear of becoming irrelevant. But the real lesson came from watching Jonathan's response. He didn't just defend me in the moment. He showed me what it means to have a true partner, someone who sees your worth even when others try to diminish it, someone who uses their privilege to protect and uplift rather than just talking about it. Too many women settle for men who claim to love them but won't stand up for them when it matters. Jonathan showed me that real love is active, not passive. It fights for what it values. Today, 2 years after our wedding, we're happier than ever. My architecture firm is thriving, working on projects that are actually changing communities. Lay Jonathan's foundation has funded housing developments in 12 cities. We have a beautiful life together, not because of his money, because we built it on shared values and genuine love. As for Vanessa, I heard through the grapevine that she eventually moved back in with her parents and is slowly rebuilding her life. I hope she learned something from everything that happened. I hope she's working on becoming the kind of person who builds others up instead of tearing them down. But honestly, I don't think about her much anymore. She was a moment in our story, not the main character. The main characters are me and Jonathan building something beautiful together. If you're watching this and you've ever been in a situation where someone tried to make you feel like you don't belong, remember this. You belong wherever your character, your work, and your love have earned you a place. Don't let anyone else's insecurity become your self-doubt. Don't let their limitations become your boundaries. Definitely don't let their racism, classism, or any other ism convince you that you're anything less than worthy of respect and love. Stand up for yourself with dignity. Surround yourself with people who see your worth, and never, ever apologize for being exactly who you are. 'Cause honey, the right people will love you not despite your background, but because of everything that made you who you are. That's what I learned on my wedding day when a jealous ex-girlfriend tried to embarrass me and ended up showing everyone exactly why my husband chose me over her. So, that's my story. How one woman's jealousy and racism backfired in the most spectacular way possible. Sometimes life has a way of teaching people lessons they'll never forget. And karma serves justice better than we ever could ourselves. What do you think? Have you ever had to stand up to someone who tried to put you down? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed hearing my story, smash that like button. Subscribe for more real talk about life, love, and standing up for yourself, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. I've got more stories to share about navigating life as a successful Black woman in spaces where people don't. Always expect to see us thriving. Till next time, remember, know your worth, stand in your power, and never let anyone dim your light. Stay strong, beautiful people. See you in the next one.